Hey everybody, it's Brant and I'm back with another video in the series Let's Fix the KISS albums. Today we're going to be talking about Animalize from KISS. And I'm going to have my trusty co-producer Rob, who's going to be kind of acting in an executive producer capacity this time, kind of like Gene did in the recording of Animalize. We're going to have a special guest producer who's going to co-produce with me today, Miss Emily Graziano from Instagram. You've seen her in videos before. She's going to be here in this video, and we're going to talk about Animalize here on Mark St. John's birthday at the time that we're recording this. And so, happy birthday, Mark. Rest in peace. And we're going to touch on that in just a little bit. So let's see what we can do to fix Animalize in this video. And if you've not ever seen me before, please sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, interact down in the comments, and share the video out to everybody. Let's get started. So I'm back with Rob and with Emily on this one. And like I said in the introduction, Emily is going to be acting in a co-producing fashion, and Rob is going to be acting in Gene Simmons fashion. Rob from Right Between the Eyes, he's got his money bag hat on there, and I'm telling him he should have had the shades.
I know. I'm prepared.
And talk real close into your mic and say, yeah, let's talk about me.
Let's talk more about me, please.
That's right. That's right. And from Instagram, I've got the lovely Emily Graziano and her mother, Mama Sandy, like I like to call her. And even though we're actually about the same age, I still call her Mama Sandy because she's Sandy's mom. She's not Sandy, she's Emily's mom. And so it's good to have Emily back in a video finally. This is a series that I wanted to bring people back from the past videos. And Emily said that, she wanted to get her hands on Animalize. And, because, I mean, come on. I mean, it's amazing that Animalize is double platinum or at least platinum plus. It's amazing that it is. And it just shows the strength of one song on this album that projected it, and maybe a little bit of the momentum that they had going with Lick It Up. But before we get into that, we just want to kind of go around the screen here and just I want to talk to Mama Sandy. So while I had you on, I wanted to talk a little bit about Mark St. John. It's Mark's birthday today. Mark Leslie Norton, born February 7th, 1956, passed away April 5th, 2007. He was better known as Mark St. John. He was an American guitarist and best known for his brief stint with KISS that only lasted from April to November. I couldn't believe that when I read that. I'd forgotten that he had actually only been with the band like 8 months. It's kind of sad, untimely what happened with Mark and his hand. His work can be heard on the band's 1984 album Animalized that we're talking about, and their upcoming 2023 live album Off the Soundboard. I'm so freaking stoked about that album. I cannot wait. I can't wait.
Yes.
I can't wait for the Poughkeepsie, New York. And he was also co-founded the glam metal band White Tiger, and he also had a stint where he played with Peter Criss for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's real sad what happened with Mark, but honestly, I don't think Mark would have lasted very long. I think he would have went the way of Vinnie Vincent really quickly. Because even in the studio, we'll find out as we're going through these tracks on the album, even in the studio, there was already some tension. And I think there actually was more tension with Mark than there was with Vinny, because at least Vinny wrote songs. And I don't know if Mark St. John was a songwriter or not, but I know that he doesn't have one writing credit on Animalize, whereas Vinnie Vincent is all over the writing credits of the albums he was involved in, with Creatures, with Lick It Up, with Revenge. But I do want to show this. Did you see what KISS Online posted just 23 minutes ago? I mean,
I thought you meant earlier today. Wow.
We've gone through this whole day, and this is what KISS Online posted today, or just now. It's a tribute to Mark St. John.
Oh, I saw that on Twitter. I just saw that on Twitter before I came on here.
Yeah. Let's take a moment to remember our friend Mark St. John. Our friend Mark St. John, who would have turned 57 or 67 today. And they have the pictures from the tour book.
Mark's time in the band was so short that no one really got to know or experience who he was other than in the Heavens on Fire video. And then when you went to the show, you were like, oh, well, there's a brunette on stage, a dark-haired gentleman. That must be Mark St. John. Turns out it's actually Bruce Kulick. So very few people ever got to see him. He did 2.5 shows, and that was it. So the fact that his second full show and his last show is the one that's going to come out that's like getting the holy grail of Kiss grails in my book, of this guitar player that the only footage we ever had is the Heavens on Fire video. And now we're going to get a full, possibly high def concert to hear Mark St. John do a lot of these classic songs. I think that is one of the biggest compliments, the biggest tributes they could pay Mark St. John and Eric Carr too, not slighting Eric Carr, but to get both of them on a live album together. If you would have asked me, 20 years ago, did I ever think there was going to be a Mark St. John anything ever put out beyond Animalize? I would have said no. So I think this is a really cool move by Universal. And I think it's going to be something that Kiss fans are going to be able to cherish and go, oh, that's Mark St. John.
Right. So Sandy, do you have any, I asked Emily, do you have any thoughts about Mark or anything? Were you a real big Kiss fan when Animalize came out, or had you kind of checked out, or what was going on with you when it come to Animalize?
Animalize, I listened to it, but I kind of fell off a little bit at the time. Because there's just certain times in my life that I kind of like went away from it and I came back. But Eric Carr kind of, you know how I feel about Eric Carr, he kind of kept my attention with it. But Mark St. John was in it for such a little amount of time that I just kind of did get invested, I guess, in him, which probably doesn't sound very nice.
Right.
But I didn't get invested in him because of Peter left, and then Eric replaced Peter, and then it's just kind of, for a little while, I felt like it was just like revolving all the time. So
I actually did not know who Mark St. John was when I was little. Like,
is he even on that shirt I got?
No, on that.
No,
pillow?
is he on the shirt? No, the shirt that I bought for the Kiss concert.
Yeah, he is on that one. But
I found
I
a
didn't
shirt.
know who he was when I was little because there was like no footage of him. I thought that Mark was actually Bruce in the Heavens on Fire video because I was little. I thought, oh, he has dark long hair.
It's the same guy.
Yeah.
Well, I bought a shirt for the one concert I went to, and it has every single member of Kiss that's been in Kiss on the shirt.
Yeah, and Mark's on there.
And Mark's on there. Every single member's on there.
Sandy, it was good to talk to you again. We're going to get into this album, and like I said, I will have you back in a video in the future. And it was good talking to you, good seeing you, and I hope that you don't work yourself too hard. And if you're working, at least when you get off work, listen to some Kiss or listen to whatever it is that you like to listen to. That's what I do. I usually listen to Kiss on the way to work and on the way home.
De-stressing, yes.
Yes,
de-stressing. It was good seeing you.
So it was good seeing Mama Sandy again. So we're going to get into Kiss Animalize here, and we're going to try to see what we can do to fix it. Me and my producer and my executive producer talk a little bit about it. Kiss Animalize was released on September 13th, 1984, the 12th studio album. Placed at this placed at my number 3 from the bottom list. Ooh. So this was almost my third least favorite Kiss album, and it was mostly affected by the lackluster songs contributed by Gene. And yeah, Rob, show your stuff off there. I do have Animalize. I can say that I do have it. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
While you're looking for that, I've got the original 1984 pressing, and then behind me is the 2014. I'm backwards here. 2014 reissue.
Yeah, I've got the original pressing, and it's got them on it, black and white. Boring Mercury release. I always give Mercury a lot of crap because their releases were just so boring. Yeah, so I do actually have this album, and I had this album when it came out. And I remember loving this album when I was a kid. It's just, I think as I got older, I kind of started seeing that it wasn't the best effort by all members of the band, namely one person. But it peaked 19 in the States. It was certified gold in 19 in late 84, and it was certified platinum in 90. It's gone on to be platinum plus. It was produced by Paul Stanley, associate producer Gene Simmons. Drums was produced by Michael James Jackson. It was recorded at Right Track Studios in New York. And additional recording by Dave Whitman. It was mixed by Dave Whitman. And Mark recorded this on his Rockman gear, and that was invented by Tom Schultz of Boston. And his tracks had to be heavily EQ'd and effects added to reduce the Boston sound. And there was a lot of extra performers on this album. Thrills of the Nights had John Bovar on bass and backing vocals. Get All You Can Take had John Bovar on bass, backing vocals, and Mitch Westman, who was one of the co-writers. John Bovar, or Bouvier, was also a co-writer. Under the Gun had John Bouvier on bass and backing vocals. Heaven's on Fire, Paul Stanley played bass on Heaven's on Fire. I've Had Enough, Into the Fire, Paul plays bass. Lonely is the Hunter, Bruce Kulick plays the guitar solo. Murder in High Heels, Bruce is on the guitar and Mitch Weissman is on the bass. And While the City Sleeps, Mitch Weissman is on rhythm guitar. Alan Schwartzberg performed additional drum fills, and Desmond Child sang backing vocals, and also had some co-writing credits. So what do we think of the name and the packaging of Animalize? Do y'all like the name Animalize? Do you feel it fits the album? Do you like the whole jungle safari, life's a jungle thing that they were going for? And is it just me, but does it feel like that this is a sister album to Asylum? So what thoughts? Just our general, we're sitting in the executive lounge right now, just kind of talking this album out about the direction they want to go. And they've come and pitched Animalize to us, and we want to put, we're animals and we should live like animals, and because life is hard, and you animalize, and we're gonna have fur, and we're gonna wear fur, and we're gonna put fur on the stage, and this is the tracks we've got, and do we feel like it fits? And what do you guys think about the whole concept of Animalize? Emily, what do you think?
Okay, so when I was little, I did not like this album's cover because I thought it was boring. I'm like, well, that's not a real Kiss album. This is boring. Like, you can say what you want about Hot in the Shade, but it has the sunglasses, which I thought was amusing as a child. This, when I was little, I thought was so boring, which is probably why I alienated myself from most of the album as a child. And I always thought, oh, well, the back picture's at least interesting.
Yes.
I almost think that the back picture should have been the cover picture, and the cover should have been the back picture.
From the executive chair, I would have called the album While the City Sleeps. Or, Thrills in the Night. You got the fire in the background, you got them all standing looking cool. And I would have used this as the front album cover.
Under the Gun.
Under the Guns. Any of the other, Get All You Can Take. Something like that. I think if they would have used what was on the Animalize Live and Uncensored VHS and the t-shirt with the woman's fingers scratching through, like, whatever that is. Yeah. I thought that would have made an interesting album cover and still gone with the Animalize motif. But you're right, this is just kind of lazy. It felt like Paul Stanley was like, Gene, what kind of carpet should I put in my house? Which one of these?
Gene's not available. He's on set. We can't take a group photo.
You know what? I bet that's it.
Yeah. I think, honestly, we could have got away with the back of the album being the cover, and if they wanted to go with the furs, and if they had a direction they wanted to go with that, and you could have stuck them on the back. There are not a lot of demos to choose from for alternate tracks, so we don't have a lot of tracks to cut. because the album's already 9 tracks with 5 from Paul, 4 from Gene. So we can't cut tracks. So the discussion will be on what they could have done to improve the songs, if anything, and to debate what the track placement will be in a track order, because I do think that that's one place where we can improve the overall album flow and feel. And, you know, sometimes a good song that is maybe not the best song is made to look worse than it really is if it's nudged right up next to a really good song.
Mhm.
So you can't take a mediocre song and have it following up to a song that has just kicked you in the teeth. So I want to talk about what you guys think without getting into much detail about the album. If you have any thoughts on what do you think about the overall sound of the album, the mix, the EQ? Do you like the way it sounds? Could they overall engineer something different?
I think overall the sound for 1984, this is right in line with the Bon Jovis of the day, that it's not as glitzy and polished as they would be in a year with Asylum. It still has some grittiness, and I think that carryover from Creatures to Lick It Up, but there's a sheen. Again, it's probably because of Mark's tone on the album. The drums aren't as thick and fat as they once were, but the guitars are starting to get to that brighter, almost Eddie Van Halen-esque type of a sound. We've lost kind of that Vinnie Vincent, dark and I wouldn't say grungy, but more crunchy is probably the better word. So
Yeah.
there's a brightness to the album, nowhere near the heights of what Crazy Nights is going to get, but this is kind of that transition of where Kiss is going to pivot and start becoming more of a pop band. So when people go, how did Kiss wind up in Crazy Nights? I think this is the album where they start moving into where
this is the first step.
Yeah, this is that first step where Gene's like, hey, this is what other bands are doing. We need to follow that trend while he's on the movie set or whatever. So I think overall, it's hard when you live with an album for so long to go, oh, what could they change sonically? Because if you listen to other acts in 84, everybody's sound is kind of the right way, but I think there's a little bit of a sidestep from where Kiss came with Creatures and we're like, all right, we're going to be heavy. We're going to be a metal band. And they carry that into Lick It Up. And now all of a sudden they're like, well, we're going to do a little bit of a pop flavor again. So it's like for every 2 steps they take in progression, they seem to somehow take 1 step backwards. So I think that's all I'll say on that end.
Okay.
Kind of piggybacking off of what you said, if this is the first step of Kiss, like being real followers rather than leaders, you listen to this album and there's just something kind of missing that doesn't make it as Kiss as the other albums. And it's just kind of weird because I kept listening to this album and I'm like, oh, where's that? Where is that? This is my band. It's just kind of like, well, this is an album by them, but it doesn't mean that it has their signature all over it. So it was kind of sad because I honestly did not listen to this album fully until I was an adult. Because as a child, I only knew Heaven's on Fire. That's it. But I just think that it's kind of weird because I think had I listened to it as a child, I think I would have been very bored. I don't think I would have thought this is legitimately Kiss. I think I would have said, can we fast forward this or can we change the CDs or something like that? So
my overall thoughts of the sounds is I like the sound of the album. The vocals sound great in the mix. The guitars are heavy when they need to be, and they're pulled back when they need to be, and the tone is good. I think the bottom end is a little flat and it's not very deep. It could have had more bottom to it. The drums seem to be a lot more neutered. Coming from Lick It Up and Creatures, the progression seems to not be a good one. Even though Michael James Jackson was brought in to produce the drum tracks, I'm sure he was under the direction of Paul. And they're not as good as Lick It Up, and they're nowhere near as good as Creatures. However, I don't think that Creatures drums would have fit on this album. If I was producing this album and somebody said, let's do the same drums we had on Creatures, I'd be like, nope, it ain't going to work. It's not the same kind of music. it's not going to work. There is no song on this album like Saint and Sinner. There's no song on this album like War Machine. There's no song on this album like I Love It Loud. Those are not poppy songs. Those are rock songs. Those are heavy metal songs. These aren't heavy metal songs. These are rock songs. These are pop rock songs. These are LA emulated songs on this album. So we know what our homework is. We got 9 tracks. They've given them to us. That's all they've got. They don't have any more. We got a brand new guitarist. We've got a drummer that's seasoned, and he's going to do anything that we can tell him to do. We've got a lead singer and rhythm guitarist that is feeling under the pressure to be the control freak because he has to put an album out, and his partner in crime is nowhere to be found because he's off making Runaway and producing bands like Black and Blue and Kill, and Wendy O. Williams. And so he's rubbing elbows with Tommy already. So it's the beginning of the end. So we're going to open up. This is the first one they've given us, and we're going to talk about, we can talk early or we can talk later about where we feel like these need to be. So we're going to start with I've Had Enough, Into the Fire. So Paul and Desmond Child wrote this. Paul plays the bass, and Gene was filming Runaway. And I love the line, how many times will they lie with the truth in their eyes? I mean, come on. Come on. Treat you like dirt, wasting the days of our lives. I mean, I've had enough Into the Fire. If they would have sat this down, I've heard the demo of this. And if they would have sat this down on a cassette tape and played this for me, I'd be like, that's going on the album. And that's how we're going to start the album, with that song right there. We're going to start the album with that song right there, because that song right there is what you guys need to be about on this album. And that's the vein you need to be in on this album. And so I think it's an awesome way to start the album. And they come out swinging. And as far as the song goes, I think it's great. The production on this, for it to be Paul, and the little bit of, he got help. He got help from the engineers. He had to get help from the engineers and the mixer, because the mixer even did some re-recording. So Paul had help. He didn't do it all himself. He had help. But I think, man, I've Had Enough Into the Fire it just comes out and just punches you right in the mouth. So go around. Emily, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I've always thought this was, ever since I started listening to this album fully, like a couple years ago or something, like I always thought this is a classic Paul vocal. This is like his vocals and just what he's talking about. I couldn't picture anyone else singing this in the band, because that's Paul. Paul is just, I think it should have been a bigger song than it actually was.
That's that. Yeah. It could have been a single. I mean, there are singles. Yeah. There are single worthy songs on here. So, all right. So what about you, executive producer?
I would have continued this longer in the tour. Maybe
yes.
it didn't survive much past the first leg. If I dig my book out, I could tell you how many times this was played live. I want to say it's 4. Mm-hmm. I think it only was played by live 4 times, and I don't think Mark St. John ever played this live. I think it was always Bruce Kulick, because I know it's not on the Poughkeepsie show coming out.
Right.
Somebody could probably correct me, but I'll look here in just a second. But yeah, I don't think Mark ever played this. And I'm with you. The opening lyrics of this song, even the second verse, is brilliant. I mean, how many times have you given up more than you got, counting the days when you know, but they will not? I mean, it's just, this is Paul is just firing on all cylinders on the stuff that he's delivering from this album. It's been one of my favorite tracks from Paul for a very long time. And there's not much I would change about it at all.
All right. So we're good. Keeping that right there at the front. So the very next track number 2, the hit Heaven's on Fire. Written by Paul and Desmond Child. Paul plays all guitars on this track. Everything. The bass, the solo, the rhythm. He plays everything on this track. The only other KISS member on this track is Eric. And the funny thing, the song snippet about this, the story snippet about this, is when Bon Jovi heard this song, they saw who wrote this song. When John Bon Jovi heard this song, they saw who co-wrote this song with Paul. They saw it was Desmond Child, and they went after him to write for the album Slippery When Wet, and the rest is history. I don't find much wrong with this song as it's written. It was the hit they needed. I don't think this album would have. I don't know if this album would have. It might have went gold just because "Lick It Up" was so stinking huge. And you know, a lot of times when the band has a really big album, fans have a tendency to buy the second album with the next album. Just because riding on the wave of success of the previous album. This song has not aged. You go into a club, you go into anywhere where music is being played, rock music is being played on a stereo, you know, in a setting or whatever. This song will come on. I know cover bands that's in my area that have this song in their set to this day. And it's got such an awesome video. The video reminds me of here's where I put it. The video reminds me of with all the girls and the girls on the beds and stuff and everything. It reminds me of what was coming with KISS Exposed. It's like they were already laying the groundwork for that. But Heaven's on Fire is good. I think it's great. I think it's one of the better songs on the album. If not, it's might be my favorite song on the album. There's another song I like on here a whole lot. Me-wise, and I want to see if you guys agree with me on this as we go around and you talk about it, I think it's a little early for Heaven's on Fire. I don't know if I would put Heaven's on Fire. It's a great 1-2 punch, but I think it's a little early for it for me. I think this is one that with this album, you just came off of a great song, and you have another great song that is going to hold its own. But you got some slippers that's going to be coming later on, and you need some stronger material further back, a little bit further back in the album to kind of help keep this album consistent, where you don't have this, you don't have peaks and valleys, or you don't have this where it just continuously slips downhill. So, but tell me, guys, what you think about the songs. Rob, if you want to go first this time, tell me what you think about it, and do you agree with me that it should not be in the number 2 spot?
I real quick want to back up to I've Had Enough Under the Fire. September 30th, 1984 was I've Had Enough Under the Fire's first live performance. It's also the debut of Bruce Kulick playing. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
Heaven's on Fire. My hot take moves to track 3, and track 3 comes up to track 2 because you need a Gene Simmons song. We'll save that discussion for a second.
Right.
This is an instant KISS classic. The first time you hear it, especially like the woos that Paul's doing in the beginning was just him vocally warming up. And the producer was like, what did you just do? He's like, I was just warming up. Do it again. Producer hits record. That was just him. You just put Heaven's on Fire in a nutshell. Like this song has stood the test of time. And you know, this song even stands the test of time in the farewell tour, hearing Peter Criss and Ace Frehley playing this song, and you can close your eyes and go, yep, it still sounds like a KISS song. When people go, well, only the 4 originals count. Well, the 4 originals play the song and you go, yeah, it works. It works no matter who's in the band is playing it. That's the ultimate test, I think, of any classic KISS song by the band. So yeah, I think it's the album placement I think is wrong, but it's a bona fide hit. There's a reason why this album goes platinum off the back of one single song only.
Exactly. What about you, Em?
Okay, this song has always been a part of my life because I grew up with the Smashes and Thrashes compilation, and I didn't know about when I was little about Eras of Kiss. I didn't know. I would just listen to that CD, and to me, I thought it was Peter, Paul, Gene, and Ace for the longest time, and to find out later, like, oh wait, that was actually a different lineup. Like that kind of was like, wow, but the song's good, and it kind of was like that segue of, well, it really doesn't matter who's playing this song because it's just a good song, and I think that it this song is just so important to me in my personal life, and it's kind of odd that it is the second song because you would think that a bigger song they would make you wait to hear it, like, oh, it's coming, it's coming.
I agree. Let's do it. We've got a Paul to start. Let's stick a strong Gene song in the second spot and maybe delay that one track. So that's exactly what I did. And the track that I chose to go into the number 2 spot is our next track we're going to talk about, Burn, Bitch, Burn. So Gene recycled parts of this. This is written by Gene. He recycled parts of this from a song he called So Many Girls, So Little Time. But it ended up being a demo he gave to the band Kill, which he was producing. Eric loved singing this song or playing this song live, but it didn't last long. This originally was called Burn, Witch, Burn. Gene in his Spinal Tap element with the lyrics like put my log in your fireplace. This album is riddled with innuendos, which was the 80s. I mean, it was the 80s. Yeah. The tones and the crunch of this guitar, this song is amazing. That guitar at the beginning, that is just amazing. And the way Eric comes in with that offbeat fill, and he kind of comes in off time, and well, it's out of the frying pan into the fire. You get that good Gene lyric, a little bit of 80s demon, a little bit, Gene was a little bit out of his element, not having the makeup on and not really having the demon anymore, but you get that, you find that little bit of that 80s demon in songs like Burn, Bitch, Burn. The drums sound great in the mix. It fits. Gene gets a little skimpy in the lyrics sometimes because sometimes work music's playing and Gene's just going, my, yeah. And then there's just like music just playing. And then, well, listen to this, babe. It's like Gene could have spent a little bit more time with the notebook, and he could have flushed out a little bit more lyrics, I feel like. And I love when Paul comes in and throws in his, woo, yeah. When Paul throws in his.
That's awesome, yeah.
That's great. And that's great. And if you listen, you hear Paul singing along with him. With so many girls, so little time. You hear Paul. I'm right there singing with him. But the gang vocals in the chorus is great. I wish it was more than Burn, Bitch, Burn over and over, because that's really all they say is, and Gene will throw in little, well, the hills are stacked now, and there's nothing you can do. He'll throw in stuff like that. But, and to me, I think this has a prequel foreshadowing to Any Way You Slice It, because he actually says, and any way you slice it. And then on Asylum, we get Burn, Bitch, Burn's brother. You're hot under the collar, ain't your mother's little daughter anymore. We get basically Burn, Bitch, Burn Part 2, called Any Way You Slice It, which is great because I love that song too. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we. So I think this is the perfect number 2 song. To me, this gives us the 1-2 punch. And at least gives us the false appearance that Gene means business on this album. So, Emily, I'll let you go first. I'm going back and forth between you. What do you think about this song?
Okay. I think this is actually Gene's best song on the album. And the other ones, maybe if they had a little bit more care, they could have been like that. Well, any of these songs by Gene, if they had just a little bit more care, could have been great. This is a good song to begin with, but it's just, like you said, if Gene really sat down and he went over the lyrics again and just, polished that up, it could have been a lead single. Again, all these songs that were just not promoted well at all. I think that Gene was just so distracted. I think that's the number one problem with this album, is that Gene wasn't there. He was making movies. he was hanging out with Tommy Thayer. Like, dude, get away from
Gene.
and it's just
Away from Tommy.
But I think this is Gene's strongest song on the album, and it is I think it's really awesome that it is early on the album, because it's like, oh yeah, Gene, but then as the album goes on, you find out, oh, was that his only good song? So
right. Executive producer.
I think something that Emily said earlier, there's something missing from the album. There's not that punch. Gene didn't play a single lick of bass on this album. I think maybe he has one, that he played,
right.
But you could tell that he probably came in, played it one day, and in, out, and done. You know, his presence is sorely missing and felt not being here on this album, which I think kind of hurts some of this. I've always dug this track. And when I was going through this book, September 30th, the date that I read, was the start of the tour. And there's a lot of Animalize songs in this tour. Burn Bitch Burn and Get All You Can Take were also in the set list, and they were immediately dropped. So Burn Bitch Burn gets played one time, and that's it. Then, like I said, Get All You Can Take was there. And I should have said this earlier. I've Had Enough Into the Fire was the opening track for the start of the tour, and it would eventually move a little bit, then fall off. But yeah, I Burn Bitch Burn. Like I said, I dug the song. It's sad that it's his best offering from the album, but yeah, I think that's all I have for that one.
Okay. All right. So so right now we're gonna say we have I've Had Enough, and then Burn Bitch Burn, and then Heaven's on Fire. So the next song up for consideration, the fourth track, Get All You Can Take. So this is a Paul and Mitch Weissman write. Paul has said this is one of his favorite songs on the album due to the Zeppelin kind of groove, and had the F word in the chorus, which I, being a 15-year-old kid, thought was awesome. Me and my friends used to, whenever that song came on and it hit that part and that gang vocal in the back saying, "What difference?" We sang that, man. We meant it. We meant it because it was just cool. Let's see. You know, the KISS was kind of be there trying to, like I said, that's one of those things, they're trying to be LA, man. You know, Paul cussed during this time in the shows. It was just really weird to see Paul dropping the F-bombs and stuff during shows. When you go back and look at it now, John Bovier plays bass and does backing vocals. Mitch Weissman plays rhythm guitar. Another one of Paul's Zeppelin type songs. It's like Radar for Love that's going to follow on Asylum, and just the riff it has, it almost has the Zeppelin riff, kind of like All Hell's Breaking Loose from Lick It Up. So it's kind of like, you know, you got 3 albums here with 3 different Zeppelin type songs as far as rhythm guitar goes and groove goes, and 3 different feels on 3 different albums. The only thing about this, if I was going to be the producer on this album, is Paul keeps climbing higher and higher and higher and higher in up the rafters. He's just going, and I'd been grabbing him by his ankles and being like, "Come back down here." But I had said all that. But Get All You Can Take, I think, is great. I think it's perfectly placed too. I would leave it right at number 4. I think it coming off of Heaven's on Fire, even though it's 2 Paul songs in a row, we got more Paul songs than we do Gene songs. So we're going to have at least 2 in a row somewhere. I'd rather have 2 Paul songs in a row on this album than 2 Gene songs on a row in this album. So I think it's a good idea to stick Get All You Can Take right behind Heaven's on Fire, and leave it right there in the number 4 spot. So Rob, you go first this time.
I like the song, and I like Paul and the Rafters. I think Paul, and this may be blasphemy, people probably say boo to this, but I don't think Paul was as strong of a singer in the 70s as what he became in the 80s. If you listen to Des Moines off the soundboard, you could tell like when Paul's trying to, he's almost screaming some of his vocals rather than singing his vocals. I think he found a way to like, hey, I've got a good voice. I need to kind of tailor this. I would have loved to have heard this version of Paul Stanley time travel back to 1977 and sing I Stole Your Love and sing, you know, Love Gun and all those things. Not that he does a very good job, but this again, leading like, how did we get to Crazy Nights? This is that step in the direction of Paul going, oh, check out what I can do with my voice. I can sound like Jeff Tate and Queensryche, who they took out on tour, which I mean, he didn't hear that at the time or whatever, but Paul's really starting to come into his own as a lead singer of the band and doing all the vocal gymnastics that he was known for. And this is really the big start of his 80s vocal gymnastics is starting on this album.
Yeah, and you know where Paul made the transition, I think, from being a good singer to a great singer? He made the transition, if you think about it, I hope you'll agree with me. This is what I think. This is my hot take on it. Paul made the progression from a good singer to a great singer, an excellent singer, in between his solo album in 77 and Dynasty. So, Emily, what do you think about Get All You Can Take?
I've always liked this song, but for some reason it's never been like a favorite, but I don't dislike it. It's kind of like well, if it comes up on shuffle, I'll listen to it, but would I personally start off with it on shuffle, like, because I gotta hear it? No. I'm not sure why that is, but it's interesting you bring up Paul and his vocal gymnastics and his maturity in his voice, because one of my favorite bands, my second favorite band ever, is actually the Beach Boys, and it's so true about when you sing falsetto, about that maturity in your voice and how you really can train your voice to sing in that register and make it sound like you're not screaming. And have it be really mature, because I see that progression with Brian Wilson in the Beach Boys. But sadly, like Brian Wilson, Paul didn't keep his voice in check. And because of that vocal gymnastics, up and down, it caused him to eventually lose his ability to sing in falsetto. And it's kind of sad, but I wish there would have been someone to keep him in check, like what Brant said, because I think then it would have been a more cohesive song, and not just, okay, Paul, okay, we get it. So I think that's my take. Maybe that's why it's never been a favorite of mine. Maybe you just solved the mystery of why it's never been, well, I like it, but it's not my favorite. I don't dislike it. I think you just solved the mystery for me.
You don't have Michael James Jackson while the album's being recorded to go, okay, Paul, let's bring it down. And especially Gene's not there to look at Paul and go, okay, let's bring it a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right.
All right. So we're going to try to, let's go ahead and say we're going to have 5 songs on the first side, and we're going to cut the second side short because we don't have enough tracks to fill up an album. So we're going to see about what we think about ending side 5 or side 1 with track 5, Lonely as the Hunter. So Gene and Paul, this was written by Gene, and Paul called Bruce to play in the solo for this one since he didn't like anything that Mark was doing. The recording of the solo went so well for Bruce that Paul told him not to cut his hair. And I think this could be, it could have been, Paul could have already seen the writing on the wall with Mark because he was having a difficult time. He said the problem with Mark is that he couldn't play the same thing twice, and they had to punch in and out a lot to get a cohesive solo out of him. And even then, they couldn't do that sometimes. So he'd play, even Paul played part of the solo, or he brought Bruce in to play part of the solo, or had Bruce play the whole solo himself on different songs. You can tell this is not Mark in hindsight on the solo. The solo sounds nothing like what we know as a typical Mark St. John solo. It sounds very Bruce. It doesn't sound the same. It has Bruce's fingerprints all over it. The riff of this song reminds me of the riff of Only You from Off the Elder. That
Yeah.
it kind of has a little bit of that Only You riff in it. It also sounds like it could be a riff you'd hear in an older Kiss album, like one from the 70s or from the early to mid 70s. It sounds like a riff you could have been done that. This song has kind of grown on me a little bit. It's got all kinds of really cool sexual innuendos. It fits like right in there. You know, is it as good as some of the other songs on this album? No, but it's not horrible. There's songs on other albums by Gene and by other members of the band that I like less than this. So I mean, I think it's worthy to stay on the album, and we really don't have much choice. And I think it's a good way to kind of, okay, we're done with side one. We got a Gene song on here. Sometimes the last track on the first side is not always the strongest track anyway. It's usually filler central on an album. So yeah, I think this, having said all that, I think this is the perfect placement for this song. And I don't hate it as much as I used to. I kind of like it. So Emily, we're going to come around to you on this one first.
Okay. I think this song is so I think Gene's vocal delivery is kind of boring. Like maybe what he's saying is good, but he just sounds so bored. Like lonely is the hunter, and it's like, come on,
Try
Gene. Like
singing,
put some
Gene.
passion into that voice. Like put some passion into that voice. Like maybe the lyrics, like Brant said, are good, but I think just the way he's singing it will bring it down. I think that's the main issue with it.
Yeah, he really didn't flesh out the melody very much. He really didn't. He came up with a bunch of sexual innuendos in his lyrics, and he's like, that'll be good enough. The riff is okay. I'll make a song out of this. What do you think, Rob?
Now, I don't mean this bad. My favorite part of the song is the end of the song, where it starts getting to the dun 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 da 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 da, that little jam section. I thought that's a cool moment. I don't know if you call it a hot take, but here's my executive producer. When we get to the Animalize tour, Gene says, "Hey, Eric, why don't you go ahead and sing Young and Wasted?" So, Emily, you said Gene just sounds like he's phoning it in. What if Eric sang this song? Would this elevate this song a little bit more? You've got somebody that's hungry, that wants to sing, and knowing how he sounds on Black Diamond and knowing how he sounds on what would become Little Caesar, but more importantly, hearing him sing Young and Wasted, I think this would have been a good vocal spot. And I'm almost surprised that Gene's out doing stuff and Paul just didn't look at Eric and go, Eric, take a pass at this.
Exactly. That's why you're the executive producer, because I didn't even think about that, but I agree with it. I agree with that.
This could have been that gem of like, what voice is that? Yep. You would have got Eric singing a spot and a song that is lackluster at best, and it is the end of side one. You're like, Lonely is the Hunter.
It was never going to be a single. It was never going to be a hit. No. They was never going to play it live. So yeah, just throw Eric a bone. You have a voice back there. Throw Eric a bone. Yeah. I agree.
But I love the jam at the end of it. That's what makes a song. And this falls into something that Emily said earlier about Get All You Can Take. This is my song that I go, if it starts the shuffle, I'm like, I don't want to hear Lonely is the Hunter. But if I'm listening to Animalize as a whole, I don't skip this one, generally because I like the end of it so much. I wish the rest of the song held me, but hearing him just sing Lonely I'm like, put me to sleep, Gene. Sing it.
Right. So. Right. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to flip the cassette, flip the vinyl, flip the cassette, and we're going to go to Under the Gun. So this was written by Paul, Eric Carr, and Desmond Child. The typical fast, frantic song that KISS has started including in albums during this era. Eric said that he had nothing to do with the writing past the initial writing of the rhythm. He was banging around on the guitar and playing a rhythm on the guitar. Paul started telling him to play these different chords. Then Paul took the rhythm part Eric was playing in the studio on a day off and ran with it. Eric has a great backing vocal yelling fire during the bridge. John Bouvier plays bass and sings background vocals. I love this song. I love the energy, the speed. It's not too fast, but it keeps a groove. It's a fast-paced rock song that Eric Carr just freaking shines on. It's got that dun, 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 dun. It's like, I love that. I think that Under the Gun is like, it's the perfect song to start the second side. It's like you get through Lonely as the Hunter and you're like, oh man, this album's starting to stink. And then you get and so it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. There may be some life left in this thing yet. So, and I think that was very calculated. I think that they they knew that they had to get you back with side two. So I love Under the Gun. I think it's perfectly placed. I think it sounds great. I freaking love Eric on this all the way around. I love the fire. I love that. That's so awesome. For years, I didn't know that was Eric. I thought it was Gene. But that just goes to show you how Eric can sing a Gene song because their voices were so similar. And so if they just gave him that one little nugget, they should have gave him one of Gene's songs that he didn't really care if he sang or whatever anyway. So he still would have got the royalty and the songwriting credit. So they should just let Eric sing some songs. But Under the Gun, I think it's perfect. I think it's right where it needs to be. What about you, Rob? Starting with you.
I love this song as much as I love I've Had Enough Into the Fire. I love Under the Gun, and the popularity of Under the Gun was a staple at KISS concerts. The only tour that it wasn't played on was Crazy Nights. So it made it through Animalize, Asylum, off for Crazy Nights, back for Hot in the Shade for about half of the tour. And it's just, this was one when I found Animalize Live Uncensored VHS. I was like, this song rips, as Nico would, on our show, Nico would say, this song slaps. It is
slaps.
It's so good. My executive producer would say, I need more attack on the kick drum so I could hear the bass drum pedals attacking the bass drum. You would get that feel. If you want that sound, go listen to the live version of it. And Eric's bass drums are just thumping, which is why I'm so excited that the Poughkeepsie off the soundboard is coming out, and this song is going to be on there. So yeah, I dig the crap out of this song.
Yeah, there's some tracks on that Poughkeepsie that's coming out are very exciting. All right, so what do you think about Under the Gun, Emily?
I think this song is really bombastic. I think this album was just poorly promoted. This should have been a way bigger song than it was. Or I wish that because I think a lot of KISS fans know this song as like a hidden gem, but this is something that nobody virtually knows, like outside of the band. Even though it was played live at concerts, nobody probably knew what it was. Which is kind of sad. I think that this could have been like the B-side to something. Put this out as a single. Put this on the radio. Like, could have done something.
Could you imagine if they pulled this out on the End of the Road tour?
Oh my god!
You know, Eric Singer would have no problem playing it. Gene would fit in. I think Tommy Thayer would be lost. I love Tommy.
I would love to see that. Paul's lapdog be lost.
I love Tommy Thayer in the band. I say whatever you will, but hearing Tommy attack, Tears Are Falling, Take It Off, and even Unholy, it's a different style of playing. And Tommy had even told Bruce, like, what's with all the tremolo and whammy bars? That's just wasn't his style. So he would really, I think, have to neuter. Right. So as much as people say Tommy's playing everything note for note, not everything note for note.
No, he's not. Yeah. Be like,
but anyway, that's a tangent.
Be like, we got a surprise for you. We're gonna play Under the Gun featuring Mr. Bruce Kulick, and Bruce comes
Oh
out.
my
and
God!
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. All right, so Under the Gun, we leave it right where it's at, and then we move on and see if we want to keep the next track in place. Thrills in the Night. Thrills in the Night is Paul and John Bouvier. John became, I said this earlier, John became involved with KISS during the Creatures tour. He was he was in the band fronted by Wendigo Williams, the Plasmatics. They opened for KISS on the Creatures tour. Great song. I think that Thrills in the Night is great. I think it should have done better when it was released as a single. I love Thrills in the Night, but Thrills in the Night, to me, I think they only released 2 singles off this album.
Mm-hmm.
And they put Burn Bitch Burn on the back of this one. Burn Bitch Burn's on the B-side. I can't remember what's on the B-side of Heaven's on Fire. But Burn Bitch Burn's on the B-side of this one. And I
can tell you.
This could maybe have been the 3rd single off the album, but I think when they put out Heaven's on Fire, they should have continued with another single, another bombastic single.
Oh my God. Guess what the B-side of Heaven's on Fire is?
Some crappy Gene song.
Lonely is the hunter.
Lonely is the hunter. So see, that's what I'm saying. They could have stuck another song on there that they considered filler. They could have, because I'm sure to them, Under the Gun would have been filler because they weren't going to release it as a single, so it wasn't going to be a hit. So why not have Heaven's on Fire, and on the backside have Under the Gun? Do something. Different.
Actually, I think Paul would have probably thought, no, Under the Gun is not going to be a filler. We're going to play that live. Sleeping is the hunter. I said sleeping. Lonely.
Sleeping is the hunter. Sleeping as the hunter is filler. But Thrills in the Night, I think it's great. I've always liked Thrills in the Night. But yes, and I think that I would move it though. And I'll talk about where I would move it in a minute. But what do you guys think about Thrills in the Night?
I grew up watching the Thrills in the Night video. And to me, I always felt as if they were trying to make it like a shout it out loud, like everybody sing the Thrills in the Night part, but it just never got to that level for some reason. But to me, this is like signature Paul 80. Like, I couldn't tell the difference with Heaven's on Fire. I really couldn't tell the difference with Tears Are Falling. But to me, I could always point out this song was made in the 80s. I'm not sure why. But in my brain, as a child, just watching the video, I'm like, oh, this has to be from the 80s or something. Because it just, Paul's voice, it's just perfectly placed in Paul's 80s voice range and his style. That's always what it's been to me. But I always felt like they were trying to make this the crowd sing-along song, but it just never got to that level.
Mm-hmm. It's in his best part of waking up as Folgers in your cup register too.
Oh, please keep that in there. Don't edit that out. That was hilarious. To me, this is the precursor. I'm thinking when Bret Michaels was putting together Poison, he had an idea for a song that would become Fallen Angel. I'm not saying that actually happened, but the framework and the archetype of a girl that's walking the streets, that she's down on her luck and all that stuff. And then you listen to Poison's Fallen Angel, which a girl moving to the big city, she's a fallen angel. Like you talk about, Emily, like the shout out loud singing, like when you're at a Poison show and Fallen Angel is being sung, everybody's singing that at the top of their lungs.
Yeah.
Not that Paul knew that song was coming 2 years prior, but it's kind of in that same footprint of we need this downtrodden person that we're trying to root for. And Paul didn't, I don't think he quite got it. I love the song. I love it live. And it's sad that the only few times they did it was leading up to the Animalize live show in Detroit. And once they film it for that, it gets completely dropped. Mm-hmm. But this is one, if I'm going through Animalize, I'm going through, okay, Had Enough Under the Fire, Heaven's on Fire, Under the Gun, Thrills of a Night. And that's about where I go. I could listen to any of those songs at any different time and I'm fully invested into the song. So I've always liked it, but I agree with you, Brain. I think album placement it's in a wonky spot. I think it would have been received better if they would have committed to continue to keep playing it night after night. It might have grown, but also I think it gets lost in the shuffle. These last 3 songs are just kind of all over the place.
How do you think, little sidebar discussion here, how do you think this song sounded and came off live on the Animalize Uncensored concert? How do you think it fell off? How do you
I
think
like
it
it
came off?
better live than I do studio.
I think it has a little more pep.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that it suffers from on the album too, is it seems to be maybe 1 or 2 beats too slow.
Yeah.
Maybe if it was just a little, instead of thrills in the night, if it was maybe thrills in the night, far from the light, just a couple ticks faster. And I think that's how they played it.
Yeah, and this tour is notably one of its benchmarks is Gene wanted all the songs played at up tempo faster because he thought that's going to show that we're more aggressive and everything. And this song really benefits from getting sped up.
Yeah, they freaking ripped through Detroit Rock City on that concert, man. They were probably cut 30 seconds off the song. All right, so yeah, so I think Thrills in the Night, I think it has a song to me, like, yeah, it kind of gets lost in the end, but Thrills in the Night seems to me as a song that it's going to benefit placed closer to the end of the album than closer to where it is now, or even further up in the album. Further up in the album, I think it's going to slow the album down too much, and we already have a couple tracks there that kind of slow it down already. So I think just kind of breaking a couple good songs apart to where we can sustain the goodness a little bit before we start sliding real fast here towards the end.
Real quick, live, this was song 7. It was Detroit, Cold Gin, Creatures, Fits Like a Glove, Heaven's on Fire, Thrills in the Night.
Wow.
So they put those 2 back to back.
That's interesting. All right, so we'll talk about where we finally move everything when we're done. So that takes us to track number 8, next to the last track from Gene, While the City Sleeps. Gene and Mitch Weissman. Gene originally offered this song to a band called Heavy Pettin' in '83, who toured with KISS in England in '83, but they didn't take it apparently. Mitch Weissman on rhythm. I think this is a great song, and I think it makes me wonder how much better these songs could have been had Gene actually been there trying. I love the lyrics, living well is the best defense, so give them hell. I love the living well is the best defense. And then you get that little bit of demon. So give them hell while the city sleeps. I mean, I think Gene actually puts in on this song. He has a couple really good yates in it and everything. So I actually think that it's not the strongest song, but at least Gene is acting like he cares. And he's showed up on this day ready to sing. So, but honestly, this is my thought. I like the way this song ends. You know how it kind of ends and it has that noise kind of at the end of it. It kind of, that noise, the guitar and stuff, and then it just kind of fades out. It sounds like the album should be over. And then here comes Murder in High Heels. So me, I would keep, we can't get rid of it because we know, like I said, we have to keep them. I would move Murder in High Heels up, and I'd close the album with While the City Sleeps.
Yeah.
Because the album's over and we're going to sleep.
If Gene hasn't put you to sleep already.
Right.
No, this is my thought. I think this is his second best song behind Burn Bitch Burn. While I like good chunks of Lonely as the Hunter, I feel like what Emily said, Gene's actually singing. Like, I don't know if this was like his first full day in the studio and he's kind of actually, pardon my French, giving a damn during this song. So, yeah, and I like how it closes. You have I've Had Enough, Into the Fire, and this kind of like would button the album, but that's not what they chose to do.
Right. What do you think, Em?
What did I write down? I think that Gene, it is a better song, but I think I've always kind of found it just a little bit boring. I don't know why, but the lyrics are good. But I think that Gene, again, I wish. I think he put more pep in his step with this song than he did for Lonely as a Hunter. But it's like, Gene, we need your full cooperation. We need your full participation. And this song could have been a little bit better had he had that. I don't know why. I did write down, what if Eric sang this song? The more I kept listening to it, I kept saying, well, what if Eric sang this song more than Lonely as the Hunter? But
I could hear that. I could hear that.
Yeah, I could hear that too. So I think that they should have, if Gene, you're not going to be here. If you decided to shoot a movie when we're going to be in the studio, if we can't get you in here to get some good performance out of you on bass, and we can't get you in here to get some good performance out of you on vocals, then we're going to get some other people to play bass, and we're going to let some other people sing your songs.
Yeah. And to Gene's credit, you know what Gene would have said? Okay. If the best voice, like Gene was in the studio. I was just listening to the audiobook Kiss Unmasked, or Take It Off. Yeah. And Juan Bouvier is in the studio with Gene, and he's playing To Heaven's on Fire, and says, well, not Heaven's on Fire, but one of the other tracks. And he tells Gene, like, well, don't you want to play? He says, no, your part was good. Keep it. So I think had Gene not been there, said, hey, we're going to have Eric sing or do something, Gene would have been like, all right, that's fine. Go ahead.
Is his vocals better than mine? Yeah, they're a lot better. Okay, keep it. Keep it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the last track, number 9, Murder in High Heels. So again, this is Gene and Mitch Weissman. Bruce added some riffs at the end of the song. Mitch Weissman played bass. And sometimes this riff sounds to me like a slowed down version of the riff of Radar for Love. That it's Murder in High Heels. It sounds, I know it's not the exact same thing, but if you speed this up in your brain, it sounds a lot like Radar for Love. Not exactly, but this song's not a bad song, and it just feels like Gene is just spouting out lyrics like, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. There's a lot of music with no lyrics, and then the chorus that just drives me crazy. She's murdered in high heels. It sounds like that.
Sweet Emotion.
Sweet Emotion. It sounds like that. It could be better if he would have worked on it more. That's all we've said that about every single song except for Burn Bitch Burn. And even Burn Bitch Burn could have been better, because it still has a lot of, you go back and listen to that, it still has a lot of part where you're like, he could be singing there. He could be singing there. He's going to let a few bars go, and he's going to go, my, yeah. And they're going to play some more bars, and we'll listen to this, babe, and we're going to go into the pre-chorus. So it's like he was minimal effort this whole album. And it really showed. I think, like I said, this is one of the things that I made me not really like this album as I got older. I saw the flaws. So what do you guys think about Murder in High Heels that we may have not already said? Opinions, thoughts?
This is how you murder the end of the album.
That's why I did not want it at the end.
It's such a boring track. I love the little nuggets that Bruce is in there, and that makes me go, because I like Bruce Kulick. I'm like, well, it's not so bad, but you can only work with what you have to work with. And the fact that Bruce plays on a couple little things, and Paul says, hey, don't cut your hair because we're going to need you. Bruce really doesn't get to show what he's capable of doing till, Asylum comes out. So the fact that he's going to get the lead guitarist job off of 2 small little parts is amazing in and of itself. But as strong as this album opens, it just comes to a slow crawl towards the end. And this is one I'll get to While the City Sleeps, and I usually don't make it much farther past that. So that's all I got to say about it. Sorry, Gene.
Yeah. So, Emily, what do you think about this last song?
Well, this song is so bad that I think in order for me to say something good about it, I have to say this is 80s Gene cheese. Like, this is cheesy Gene. It's campy. The murder in high heels. Like, that wouldn't even make it into like an 80s like thriller movie for soundtrack. Like, it'd just be too goofy. It's so bad that I have to call it like 80s cheese or camp. That's the only compliment I can give it because it's so terrible.
Yeah, it could have been the closing track on a Be My Bloody Valentine 80s B movie
This is
slasher.
this is the end credits that nobody's sticking around for.
Right.
Unless you know there's a bonus track afterwards that you're going to suffer to go through this track.
Okay, so here's what I ended up with track listing wise, and I think it helps to spread out the good and help to spread out the bad, and makes the album kind of at least waffle like this rather than go and then go like this. So I've had enough. Into the Fire starts the album, then Burn Bitch Burn is track number 2, then Back to Heaven's on Fire for track number 3. Get All You Can Take at track number 4. Lonely is the Hunter closing out the first side with track number 5. Flipping Around, flip the cassette. Under the Gun starts us off. Then we move Murder in High Heels up to track number 2. Then Thrills in the Night, because that way I've got a little bit of separation. Thrills in the Night kind of draws you back in. And then While the City Sleeps. While the City Sleeps, just as soon as it starts, it sounds like, okay, we're wrapping this up. This album's getting ready to wrap up. And then by the time they get to the end and they deconstruct it the way they do, and it just kind of fades out. So do you think that do you feel like collectively as producers here that we fixed Animalize and made it better? Do you think we made it better with our suggestions? And I guess you watching, I know you are down in the comments. Hey, do it. Hit the thumbs up or get down there in the comments and put us on blast or whatever, because the algorithm doesn't care either way. Track listing. What track listing would you guys do that you're watching? What would you do? What would you have changed about Animalize? I think Animalize is it's a good album. I mean, it's not one of my favorites according to my previous list. And honestly, if I was to retrack everything and re-evaluate my list, it would probably still come kind of towards the bottom. I don't think it would move up very high because it's got to push albums out of the way that I like a whole lot better. Is this is Animalize even either in either you guys top 10? Is it a top 10 album for you? Top 20?
It's top 20 for me. Man.
It's not top 20 for me. It's not. Is it even top 20 for you?
Probably not.
Probably not.
What makes this a strong album for me, I think, is the time frame that I came in, being a late 80s, early 90s KISS fan, and the fact that I had Animalize live and uncensored, so I was going back to this album because of that concert video, DVD, whatever, it may be. And the fact that this is a platinum album, that Heaven's on Fire drags this album to the finish line and past the finish line, that song is still played live to this day, and you can hear it on classic rock stations or wherever. So I think because of that,
hair metal all the time. It's on Hair Nation all the time.
I think because of that, this elevates it for me a lot higher on my list. I'm not saying that I'm not going to put this up against Rock and Roll Over by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the nostalgic part of my KISS fandom, if it's not in the top 10, it's floating somewhere in the teens.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of in closing, if you look at this, I mean, on paper, it's not a bad album because I've Had Enough, great song. Heaven's on Fire, great song. Burn Bitch Burn, great song. Get All You Can Take, great song. Lonely is the Hunter, not so great. Under the Gun, great song. Thrills in the Night, great song. While the City Sleeps, not that great. Murder in High Heels, not that great. It's 6-3. But you know, I'm glad for it because I'm glad for Heaven's on Fire. That's a song that a lot of people know Kiss by. You put on Heaven's on Fire, and people's like, oh, that's Kiss. They know Kiss, and it's the non-makeup Kiss. And it's before they started looking too glitzy and ridiculous like they did in it with Asylum. So they kind of looked kind of street, kind of cool. I mean, the fur was a little much. They weren't quite what they were with Lick It Up. Lick It Up was like really street-ish and everything. But, you know, here, you know, they look like they're getting ready to go out and hunt deer. You know, I mean, they look like they're getting ready to go out deer hunting here in the South, you know, hunting some deer. So, I don't know. But I like the album. I like it. So the next album in the Let's Fix the Kiss albums, working my way up my list. The next album is going to be Peter Criss's solo album.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Were you saying something?
Can Peter Criss's solo album be fixed?
Yeah, if he doesn't record it.
So I've got a pretty good guy. I got a pretty good person in mind to be our co-producer on this, and Rob can sit back and sleep. He can bring us coffee.
While Rob sleeps.
While Rob sleeps. During Peter Criss. Yay.
You know, there's actually 3 or 4 songs on that album that I actually really do like. I'll be perfectly honest.
Okay.
3
So,
or
you know,
4.
I know it's some of the people's least favorite album in the catalog. It was real low with mine, and it's not that I don't like the album. It's just there's a lot better albums above it. So we will be back next month, in the month of March, when we will have Rob back. And Rob's not reviewed Peter Criss on his channel yet. It'll be a while before he gets to it.
Yeah.
It might be, maybe. But who knows? But if he hasn't, then he's going to kind of just offer in some thoughts, not give too much insight so he don't give away. But I got to talk to a guy. I know a guy that has been in videos before, and I think that he would really probably like being in this video. And he loves talking Peter Criss. I'll see about getting him in onto Peter Criss, and we will be back in March. So Rob, tell the kind people out there and not so kind people out there in YouTube land where they can find you.
You can find the 3 of us, my other 2 better halves, Nick and Nico Caruso, Right Between the Eyes podcast. You can find us on YouTube. We're using YouTube as kind of like our preview clip. We record just like Brant's doing here, and I extrapolate the audio, put it up as an audio show, but I'll put like a 2-minute, 5-minute video clip, and sometimes we'll do full episodes. But you can find us on all your podcatchers, your iTunes, Google Play, Stitchers, and all that for the audio version of our show, Right Between the Eyes podcast. And we're on Twitter at RBTE podcast, and you can find us on Facebook at Right Between the Eyes podcast. Thanks for having me on again as executive producer.
Yes. Emily, where can they find you?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at the handle at FlapperDame16, and then I'm on YouTube as just my regular name, Emily Graziano. Yeah, I do other videos like Classic Hollywood and Kiss, basically. That's what I do.
And you guys know where you can find me if you've been here. If you haven't been here before, you can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on Twitter at In My Head channel, and you can find me on Patreon at In My Head, and you can find me here at youtube.com/In My Head. So that's all we've got for this one, guys and gal. Thank you so much, Emily. It was good to see you again, and we appreciate you guys hanging out with us for a little while. Be sure to go over to PodoMatic, and the link will be down in the description. You can go there, and you can this might get trimmed down a little bit because YouTube don't like videos that are over 2 hours long. So it might be trimmed down a little bit. And so if this video is much less than 2 hours, then there is a lot more content over on the PodoMatic audio only that you can download and you can listen to. So thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me, and thanks for staying up late with me. We're shooting this. It's almost 11 o'clock. And so I appreciate my guests, and I will see you guys on the screen. I'll see y'all in the next ones, and we'll see all of you in the next ones. Take care. Be safe. And that's it. That's a wrap.